right. Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. All right, just a few things at the top, and then happy to take your questions. Secretary Austin returned yesterday from a busy week of travel. A summary of highlights includes productive working meetings with his NATO counterparts in Brussels and a first ever G7 defense ministerial in Naples. A historic visit to Kyiv in which the secretary underscored the United States' unwavering commitment to supporting the Ukrainian people in their fight for freedom, and a papal engagement at the Vatican in Rome in which the Secretary and His Holiness Pope Francis discussed shared concerns over global security challenges and the importance of promoting peace and stability in conflict-affected regions. Turning to the Middle East, yesterday Secretary Austin spoke by phone to Minister Gallant to discuss Israel's operations in Lebanon and the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Secretary Austin expressed his condolences for the IDF brigade commander killed in the northern Gaza Strip over the weekend and welcomed the movement of humanitarian assistance through the Erez crossing. He urged that Israel take all necessary steps to address the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza and to work to seize opportunities for the release of hostages and a ceasefire presented by the death of Sinwar. The Secretary also expressed his deep concern over reports of strikes against the Lebanese armed forces and emphasized the importance of taking all necessary measures to ensure the safety and security of the Lebanese armed forces and UNIFIL forces. And earlier today, U.S. forces participated in an Iraqi-led operation against ISIS fighters in the Anbar province in Iraq. Our assessment of the operation: no U.S. personnel injured in the operation. We'll have more info to share soon. Additionally, I have an update on the 2 service members wounded in a partnered raid with Iraqi security forces on October 22nd. Earlier this week, the ISF, enabled by personnel from CJTF OIR, conducted strikes and follow-on raids on multiple ISIS locations in central Iraq, targeting several senior ISIS leaders and killing at least 7 ISIS operatives. During the operation, 2 U.S. military personnel were wounded by an explosion while assisting Iraqi forces with site exploitation. While both service members sustained serious injuries, they are in stable condition and are currently en route to Walter Reed Medical Center for follow-on care. Additionally, we recently learned a 3rd service member is being assessed for potential TBI. And as you know, TBI numbers can fluctuate over time. All are in stable condition and receiving the care that they need. We will provide more information about the outcome of the raids and the status of these service members as it becomes available. And finally, today, President Biden issued the first ever National Security Memorandum on Artificial Intelligence. The department strongly supports the leadership of the President and the Vice President to prioritize the adoption of artificial intelligence in national security. The department worked with the NSC and our interagency partners to align on the scope of work outlined in the NSM and to begin preparations on implementing the guidance directed to the DoD. To keep pace with the rapid maturity of this technology, we intend to leverage existing efforts like Replicator and our experimentation efforts like the Global Information Dominance Experiment and the Rapid Defense Experimentation Reserve. The Chief Digital and AI Office is working closely with industry, the AI Safety Institute of the Department of Commerce, and the military departments to accelerate ethical and responsible use of AI. To support international partnership and building off of the political declaration on responsible military use of AI and autonomy, next week, the department is hosting a 3-day Responsible AI in Defense Forum with 16 nations in the AI Partnership for Defense, NATO partners, and key partners in the industry. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions. Lita.
Thanks, Sabrina. 2 things. One, just on this latest Iraq operation, U.S. forces were with, again, Iraqi forces. Was this a similar raid to what happened the other day? Is it that type of thing? And do you have any details on ISIS killed or anything like that?
So still waiting for a final assessment of the raid. Similar in that this raid was like the one on October 22nd and going after ISIS fighters in Iraq. This was an Iraqi-led operation, so U.S. forces participated, but it was an Iraqi-led operation. Hopefully we'll have more to share soon. But as I mentioned, I'm not, to my knowledge, no U.S. personnel injured.
And then secondly, on North Korean forces in Russia, do you have any updates on whether or not you've seen any movement of North Korean forces out of Vladivostok? Are they moving across Russia? Are they moving into near Ukraine? Anything on that?
Sure. I don't have any updates other than what the secretary spoke to yesterday, that we have seen evidence of DPRK troops that have gone into Russia. I think you heard yesterday it's likely around 3,000. What exactly they're doing has yet to be seen, but it's something that we certainly are going to continue to monitor. Just to emphasize the point that the secretary made yesterday, this really highlights Russia's desperation. Tin cupping to the DPRK, to Iran, enticing DPRK soldiers, if they were to ever enter the fight. I think that shows that Putin has failed in his strategic objectives on the battlefield, but we're going to keep monitoring, and we'll keep you updated.
Right, but the White House made it clear they're training, there's efforts to train them. You, at this point, don't know or have not seen any evidence that they have moved out of the training to other locations?
Nothing so far. What exactly they'll be doing from their training in Russia still remains to be seen.
Right.
Yeah. Natasha.
Thanks, Sabrina. So it seems like there's been pretty significant uptick in the number of these raids against ISIS figures, the Iraqi-led raids. And you keep saying that they are Iraqi-led, but service members keep getting injured, and we had heard, that part of the problem is booby traps, but that usually affects kind of the first person through the door. So if these are Iraqi-led, why do these U.S. service members keep getting injured? And can you explain, I guess, in more detail what their actual role is in these raids?
For some of the raids, I'd have to get you more information. I'd refer you to CENTCOM and exactly for each raid what U.S. personnel are assisting with, as each raid is slightly different. In terms of injuries, these are still, even though they're Iraqi-led, they are still U.S. personnel that are putting themselves, in an area where there's dangerous activity. Certainly with the raid that happened earlier this week, we saw 2 service members experience serious injuries, but thankfully they're in stable condition. I think we'll have more to share on each raid. I know Central Command is working to get you more information, so I just don't have more on the one that was also conducted earlier today.
Okay, and then on Gaza, Secretary Austin spoke with Gallant yesterday. Obviously, there was a 30-day deadline that was given to see whether more aid was going to go into northern Gaza. Has there been progress made on that front?
Well, as you heard me mention in the topper, we have seen more aid move through the Erez crossing. It's not enough. I think what the secretary has said also echoes what Secretary Blinken said in the region. The humanitarian situation is dire in Gaza, and particularly in northern Gaza, we do need to see more humanitarian aid getting in. That's something that comes up consistently on his calls with Minister Gallant, and it's something that, again, came up yesterday. We are seeing some progress, but we want to see more. So we're going to keep pushing on that issue, but we are seeing some progress getting in when it comes to humanitarian aid. Joseph.
Thanks. Also on the Secretary's call yesterday with Gallant, you mentioned that he expressed deep concern about the targeting of UNIFIL troops and Lebanese soldiers. Less than 24 hours later, another 3 Lebanese soldiers were killed this morning in an Israeli attack. It's not the first time the Secretary has brought it up. So, and these are troops that are backed and an institution that's funded in large part by the U.S. So, what's the message that the Secretary is getting when he raises these concerns? It's either Gallant and maybe the Israelis don't take it seriously, or the Secretary's message may not be getting across. So what's your response?
Without going into too many more details of the call, and without speaking for Minister Gallant, I think they certainly hear our concerns and they understand them. They understand the need to, conduct operations that take into account whether it be Lebanese armed forces or UNIFIL operating in that area. They do need to ensure the safety and security of Lebanese armed forces and UNIFIL forces, and that's something that has been reiterated. They do understand that, and we're going to keep making it clear and keep pressing for details when we need more information. But I just don't have more to provide from the conversation.
Quick, sure. Two more. One, have you guys seen any indications, because you've the U.S. has helped Israel with certain ISR. Have you seen any indications that there's Iranian personnel inside of Lebanon operating?
I don't have anything to provide on that.
And final point, some reports indicate that Israel may have delayed its response, or this, what everybody's expecting is a response to Iran because of the leak. Do you have any, can you confirm that one, and do you have any updates on this leak?
I don't have any updates. It's something that, I don't have more to provide than what General Ryder provided on Tuesday, which is that the FBI is the lead agency when it comes to the leak of classified documents, and that, DOD is feeding into that investigation. It's in the early days, so we have to let the investigation take its course. In terms of any impact to Israeli operations or, when Israel chooses to respond, that's not really something I can speak to. I'd refer you to the Israelis to speak to that. Janie.
Thank you, Sabrina. On North Korea, excuse me, Secretary Austin said he had confirmed the evidence of North Korean troops in Russia. However, he said he could not yet confirm the role of the North Korean troops, right? But last month, North Korea shipped 20,000 boxes of war supplies and stockpiles to Russia in advance. Ultimately, it is clear that the North Korean military will play a role in intervening in Russia's war in Ukraine by sending troops. How do you assess this?
Yes, Janie, there's a clear relationship and a clear link between the DPRK and Russia. And we've seen that over the course of the war and as it's developed. The DPRK, Iran, are providing military assistance and support as Russia engages in this illegal war and has been for 2.5 years. I think what's really important here, and to take a step back, is Vladimir Putin has become so desperate that he is now willing and soliciting, potentially support from the DPRK to put their personnel on the battlefield. We're talking about, over 500,000 casualties that, Russia has experienced on the battlefield. So if the DPRK soldiers enter into combat, they would be co-belligerents, and that is a very serious issue. But it's not it's something that we're, aware of this relationship. We're going to continue to monitor. I think, again, the important point here is that it really highlights Putin's desperation because he has really failed to meet his strategic objectives on the battlefield.
When North Korean Kim Jong-un inspected the ICBM unit and ordered the nuclear readiness, can you predict that North Korea and Russia are likely to use nuclear weapons at a critical time?
I don't have anything on what you're referring to, if you're referring to any testing, but we've seen that saber rattling, dangerous rhetoric coming out of Russia. It's something that we certainly take seriously, but nothing's changed in terms of our nuclear posture. What's up?
Thank you. I have several on Ukraine, and then we'll be on the AI.
Sure.
So North Korean troops, if they are used in a fight against Ukraine, would that prompt a stronger response from the United States, like increased military aid packages, or maybe lifting restrictions on longer range weapons or something else?
Well, what I would say is, without getting into the hypotheticals, in terms of increased assistance, I mean, just within the last week, we've rolled out nearly $800 million in aid and presidential drawdown packages to Ukraine. That is significant, and that's just within the last week. The commitment to Ukraine hasn't changed. Our policy on long-range strikes and being able to use something like ATACMS has not changed. I think you've seen time and again this administration's commitment to Ukraine for as long as it takes. But it's not just us, it's allies and partners. And one of the things that was discussed at, the NATO Defense Ministerial, at the inaugural G7 Ministerial, there is wide support for Ukraine within the international community, not just within Europe. So it's not just the United States supporting Ukraine, it is a global effort. But again, just can't get down into the road of hypotheticals.
We saw House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner. He yesterday said that if North Korean troops do attack Ukraine, the U.S. should take direct military action against them. Is this something that might be possible?
Look, I'm, again, just not going to get into hypotheticals. Right now, what we are doing as the Department of Defense is supporting Ukraine with its military objectives, which is helping with security assistance. The secretary had the opportunity to travel to Kyiv. He met with President Zelensky. His counterpart, Minister Umerov, was given presentations by other parts of the Ukrainian military to understand how their, military objectives on the battlefield fit with their strategic objectives and their long-term goals. Again, I can't go down the road of hypotheticals because right now, what exactly DPRK troops are doing in Russia still remains to be seen. But I think, again, it highlights that Putin has really failed to meet his strategic objectives. Sure.
AI. Could you tell more about how the Pentagon is going to implement the president's memorandum to adopt the AI technology? Where is AI going to be adopted? How soon?
So everything will be done through the CDAO. Again, the NSM was just rolled out today, so there'll be more to come. And as I mentioned in the top, we are having a summit. I believe it's in the first part of next week, so there'll be more to share after that. Noah.
Given that Secretary Austin has spoken to his Russian counterpart directly in the past, I'm wondering if the presence of North Korean troops there now, as a new development, is something he could raise in a direct call.
If there was a direct call to read out, I would certainly do that. But right now, I don't have any calls to read out. I think we have made our concerns publicly pretty well known about this latest development, but I just don't have anything more to share on that.
Could you characterize the state of communication between defense talks with U.S. and Russia right now?
I don't have anything to read out other than that last call that took place. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was over the summer.
Another quick one. The DIA put out a report yesterday on nuclear issues, specifically assessing adversaries like Russia and China. It listed motives for China's nuclear buildup that haven't necessarily been talked about before, at least in such a report. Among them are putting more capabilities behind long-held strategic concepts, and another is parity with the U.S. in terms of its nuclear buildup. Is that reflecting increased clarity for the U.S. on something that they traditionally struggle to get the Chinese to talk about publicly?
Yeah, Noah, I don't have more to share on the report. I think I'd let the report's findings speak to itself, but just don't have more to add from here. Yeah, in the back.
Thank you, Sabrina. As you mentioned a while ago, that the aid is still not enough that's going into Gaza. So that does not mean the Israeli didn't yet meet the 30 days letter that's been sent by the Secretary Austin and Secretary Blinken, and the clock is ticking for the 30 days. So are you considering for something like hold some munitions to Israel? What you are planning if the Israel will not meet this letter?
Well, what I mentioned in the top was that we are seeing more aid come through the Erez crossing, and that is a good sign, and we want to see more. It's not enough. More needs to be done, and we know that the situation, particularly in the north, is getting worse. But we have seen some more aid get in. Again, not going to speak to the letter, but I can tell you that this is an issue that the Secretary has raised with Mr. Gallant, and of course you saw Secretary Blinken in the region directly raising it as well.
I have another one, please.
Sure.
Today there is Secretary Blinken already announced that U.S. and Israeli negotiators are set to travel to Doha in the coming days to attempt to reach a ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza. I know the DoD, they are not involved directly in this negotiation, but this time, how much do you have confidence maybe will be like some progress will happen in Doha? We have listened from the White House. This is a good chance for that to have some progress in this negotiation. What about the DoD?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. Look, I think you've seen a commitment from this administration to continue to engage parties to come to the table to reach a ceasefire. As you just mentioned before, the humanitarian situation is dire. So we know that a ceasefire would be the best way to get, whether it be food, water, humanitarian needs in, as well as medical treatment into Gaza. We also know that, Israel has been effective in really dismantling Hamas in Gaza. Hamas, cannot conduct the type of attack that they conducted on October 7th today. They just don't. They have been dismantled into a way where they are not that same organization pre-October 7th. We have also urged, Sinwar's death is an opportunity. Let's use it. So again, you're seeing Secretary Blinken in the region. I don't have more to add to his comments, but we certainly haven't given up hope. It's something that this administration is going to continue to push for. Yeah.
Sorry, two questions. The first is that Harry S. Truman, which is supposedly on its way to the Middle East, is currently in the North Sea doing some stuff with the Arctic. So I was wondering what kind of message is that sending that carrier strike group can take an extended period to go up to the high north instead of going straight to the CENTCOM area of response. And then second, the DoD IG report came out today about naval SEAL training following the death of Kyle Mullen, highlighting that the DoD nor the Navy SEALs have policies about sleep deprivation and PED testing. So I was wondering if the DoD is planning to create any policies as a result of that investigation.
Let me take the question on the investigation. In terms of the Harry S. Truman, first, let me remind you that in the CENTCOM AOR, we still have the Lincoln operating. The Truman, as I know folks track where our ships are moving, was always scheduled to do this exercise. It was a planned exercise. She is in the EUCOM AOR continuing to operate. I don't have any announcements to make on her movements other than that she could, continue to operate within the EUCOM AOR, which includes the Mediterranean. But it's important to remember that we've not only have the ABE operating in the CENTCOM AOR, we've augmented our airframes as well. And so, we have, a lot of air power in the region. And of course, as you're tracking, we also have the THAAD battery that's in Israel. So, for more on the Harry S. Truman, I'd refer you to, EUCOM or the Navy to speak to her movements, but I don't have anything to announce today.
Just to quickly follow up, is there any concern about the straining of carrier strike groups since you're bringing in some from the Indo-Pacific area now? It seems that all of our East Coast ones are pretty much going deployment to deployment with extensions. So is there any concern from the DoD that we're straining our sailors, we're straining our ships past what they can do?
Look, one of the Secretary's priorities is taking care of our people. It's something that he is always concerned about if we are putting a strain on our apparatus or, or any service. But these are decisions made in conjunction with the Joint Staff that, he feels necessary to deploy carrier strike groups when appropriate. October 7th was something that, we did not predict was going to happen. So we did have to surge new capabilities to the region, and you've seen us rotate those out as, some carrier strike groups have had to be extended over time. Secretary completely knows and understands that folks have to come home. They have to see their families. And of course, that ship has to go through significant amount of maintenance. So it's absolutely something that's on the Secretary's mind. It's on our service chiefs' minds as well. And I think that's why, taking care of our people is one of the Secretary's priorities. Charlie.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's nice to see you.
Regarding the leak, we know that the Secretary of Defense and Minister Gallant spoke. Mm-hmm. We never got any details, no readout of that conversation.
There's a readout posted on defense.gov.
Exactly about what they spoke about?
We have a readout of their call from Saturday and from yesterday.
They spoke, but there are no details as far as...
I don't have more details to provide other than the readout that's online. I don't have the readout in front of me.
There's a level of trust, I suppose, that may have damaged that relationship. We have the United States essentially spying on our ally because we're not getting or the United States isn't getting any information that they need to when you have U.S. forces in the region as far as these attacks. That's the reason I'm wondering if that relationship is under strain. My more pointed question is, I know that you said that the Pentagon is supporting the FBI investigation. Mm-hmm. Which part of the Pentagon is supporting that investigation, and how can you be sure if this was the source of the leak that leak has been plugged?
So I'm not going to get into specifics on what particular office is supporting the investigation. I can tell you the department is broadly. We always would work, with our with law enforcement agencies when it comes to investigation pertaining to the department. But I can't get into more specifics about that. In terms of, you said, paraphrasing here, but you said is the relationship between the United States and Israel under a strain. Look, the secretary continues to speak to Minister Gallant. He spoke to Minister Gallant just yesterday as we were coming home from Italy. I expect more engagements with Minister Gallant to continue in the future. I think they have a very good relationship with each other. They've spoken to each other quite frequently, but I just don't have more to add in terms of these intel leaks. Yes.
Thomas Savelli, military.com.
Hi.
Can the Pentagon provide any update on hurricane response? Active duty soldiers were called up for recovery. Are they still assisting at this point? And is there any further analysis of damage to DoD installations from those storms?
Thanks for the question. I don't have more to provide than what General Ryder provided on Tuesday, which is that the active duty that we're assisting North Carolina, particularly around Hurricane Helene, their mission is ending and will be back, I think, tomorrow. So, during that time, they delivered his incredible amount of life-saving aid to folks that needed it most in the North Carolina communities. Again, this is a FEMA-led effort, but, of course, we were happy to plug in where we could and provide the resources that we did. But their mission is coming to a close.
And one more question. Presidential election right around the corner. Is DoD preparing in any specific ways, whether that's for potential public demonstrations, National Guard response to polling locations, or is U.S. Cyber Command, monitoring election interference, anything of that?
I don't have anything to provide right now in terms of any requests for assistance. In terms of Cyber Command and monitoring elections, I think we always monitor for misinformation, and unfortunately, we continue to see misinformation in the social media spaces continue to push false narratives, and so that's something that we always monitor and have called attention to, whether it be from this podium or others in the administration. But I just don't have more to add. Yes.
Thank you, Sabrina. So, as you point out, within a week, this is the second joint operation against ISIS in Iraq. In Syria, there have been the same operations. Does it mean that ISIS is reviving and regrouping?
Again, ISIS is not what it was from 10 years ago. I think we continue to see ISIS operate within Iraq and Syria, and their footprint has spread to other parts of the world. I don't think that demonstrates necessarily, about their resurgence in Iraq or Syria, but it represents that they still remain a threat, which is why we do these partnered raids with the Iraqi security forces.
Secondly, a quick question. How do you look at the Turkish operations in the north of Syria? Since yesterday, there have been dozens of security forces killed and civilians.
Well, I think, as you saw in Turkey, what looks like to be a terrorist attack. And of course, on behalf of the department, we express our condolences to the victims and those that were also injured and, their families. But they have a right to hold those people accountable that conducted that attack. Yeah, right here.
Thanks so much. Regarding the leaks, so General Ryder the other day stated that Aryan Tabay is not a subject of any investigation regarding the leaks. Do you confirm that she is still working as a chief of staff for Christopher May?
So I'm just going to say that there are some names floating around, and neither official is a subject of interest, and the department remains fully committed to supporting the investigation. I'm just not going to go into specifics on personnel and where they're working. I'm going to leave it there. You got another?
So do you deny that do you confirm whatever the General Ryder said the other day, that she is not particular, because her name is out there she has been named. So
yeah, and I think it's really dangerous when a investigation is just a few days in to be putting names out there. Again, as General Ryder said, and I will say again, neither of the officials whose names are circulating are the subject of interest in this investigation, and we are committed to working with the FBI on this.
Just to make it clear and
I don't think I can make it more clear.
The Pentagon is categorically denies that she and confirms that she is not under investigation regarding the leaks.
I think I just said that neither official is a subject of interest.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the back, and then I'll go to Lee.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. I have honored veteran James Bond Stockdale here, my teacher for ethics. I want to honor another veteran, Mr. Anderson, from the Iraq War, who was my Spanish teacher. So he had said, and this question is regarding you and your allies who fight against terrorism, I mean Pakistan. So Mr. Anderson had taught me that dígame a quiénes es tu amigos y yo dijaré quién es usted. That tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. Yesterday we had second anniversary of a journalist who was killed in Pakistan 2 years ago. 10 years ago, an ISI official went to the judge, who is a high court judge now, to rule against me. Fingers are pointed at your allies. How does it affect you and how do you feel about it?
I'm sorry, I'm just not familiar with the case that you're referencing, but what I can tell you is broadly, this administration and this department supports journalists wherever they work to be able to report freely and without fear of harassment.
Second, ma'am.
Okay, do you have one more?
I would like to have two more because it's the entire country has been, all the fourth pillar has been destroyed, and State Department usually gets political answers. You give more realistic answers, so I want to. But two more would be great, please. Last week we had several parliamentarians picked up in Pakistan just to have their vote in a constitutional amendment. In Pakistan, the current prime minister we have, his brother was accused of taking money from Al-Qaeda chief Osama bin Laden. The State Department, I have brought this into their notice. You know, my colleague had last week asked you that Al-Qaeda is again growing in that region. How do you feel about having political leadership who have taken money, according to their own even party members, they have taken money from Al-Qaeda leaders? How do you have political leaders like that in a country, while at the same time you know that terrorism again growing over there?
So I don't have anything on these reports that you're referencing. I can tell you, Al-Qaeda does remain a threat, something that we monitor, but I don't have anything else. And do you want to ask your final question?
Yes, please. My last question is that we have had government senior officials being kidnapped. We have had judges being threatened, pictures in their bedrooms taken, and again fingers are pointed out at your allies and your friends in battlefield. Again, I want to say this to you. Do you take these things into consideration? Because I know State Department doesn't take them. Do you raise these concerns at all with your friends and allies who go to military colleges here to get their degrees and stuff? Do you at all discuss these things with them?
Look, I'm not familiar with the reports that you're referencing. I think you can be rest assured that the United States is always going to stand for democratic principles and the promotion of democracy all around the world. But I don't have anything more to add to those reports. Louis.
Hi. Yes, I have a leaks question and two follow-ups on Jani's questions about North Korea. Are you aware that, do you have information suggesting that there has been a new leak of documents, or do you know if there's the possibility that there may be additional documents that are released part of this potentially?
I'm not aware of any, but it's something that the IC, of course, given this latest alleged leak of classified documents, is going to look into.
Okay. And with regards to North Korea, on the trip, the Secretary, when he confirmed the presence of the North Koreans, he also talked about the potential implications for the Indo-Pacific.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through what that means? I mean, potentially, if there are casualties, could this and South Korea, promising assistance now, or at least suggesting that they might provide assistance to Ukraine. Is that what he's talking about, of the potential tensions between both of those countries and how it would impact the United States?
No, I think what the secretary was referring to is that, if these soldiers from the DPRK do get involved in active combat operations within Ukraine, that is destabilizing to the Indo-Pacific. And of course, that has an impact to our allies, whether it be in Europe or in the Indo-Pacific, particularly the Republic of Korea. As the secretary characterized it, which I think he did a better job than I would, but, if it is the case that DPRK soldiers enter into combat, they would be co-belligerents with Russia, and that is a very serious issue. It's also serious that this does highlight Russia's desperation. And so I think because it highlights Russia's desperation, it also highlights the fact that we have been successful in continuing to arm and support Ukraine with what it needs. And it's not just the department. Of course, we roll out multi-million-dollar packages to Ukraine, but you have other sections of this administration from energy, state, et cetera, that have also supported Ukraine during this time. And I think it also shows that under the secretary's leadership, the UDCG, which convenes monthly, has been incredibly successful in galvanizing the world. So I'll leave it at that.
And last one on North Korea. Ukraine's Defense Intelligence Service has posted a statement publicly saying that as of yesterday, they have detected the movement of North Korean troops into Kursk. Can you provide a comment or any indication if that is an accurate report?
I don't have anything on that report. All I have is what I was able to, what the secretary mentioned yesterday, and I know the White House also did as well, but I don't have anything more on those reports. It's something that we're going to monitor, and as we, have committed, we'll keep you updated on that. I see Mike with a question.
Yeah. How comfortable are you that Israel actually pays heed to the suggestions that are coming from Secretary and the other leaders? If they had paid attention, if Israel had listened to you, they wouldn't have gone into Rafah. Yahya Sinwar would still be alive. They wouldn't have launched these attacks into Lebanon that decimated the Hezbollah leadership. They wouldn't have launched a strike into Tehran that took out the other leader there. Do you think they're just ignoring you, and what's the reason?
Well, Mike, that's quite a leaning question. I would say that we never said you can't conduct operations to dismantle and go after Hamas leadership. But we were concerned about how operations take into civilians and removing those civilians from the battle space. That's something we've impressed upon them. They absolutely have a right to prosecute, Lebanese Hezbollah that's on the border threatening Israeli citizens that have not been able to return to their homes in the north. The dismantling of Hezbollah leadership has implications for the United States that, you're taking a terrorist off the map. It's our conversations with the Israelis is how you conduct your operations. And that's always been something that we've impressed upon them and continue to do so. You've seen the multiple calls that the secretary has had. Not enough aid is getting into Gaza. That is a huge concern for this administration, and you covered this. You know that we set up a maritime corridor over the summer to surge aid in. That helped. But we know the land crossings are the best way for aid to get in, and you can do that. You can get humanitarian aid in to those who need it most while conducting operations, and that's something that we've impressed upon them from the beginning. Okay, all right. I'm sorry, I have to wrap it up for today. But thanks everyone. Have a good one.